What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and while we are only a few days away from me posting my official content on the Player's Handbook, many of you have asked me a couple of questions and various comments about some of the articles that D&D Beyond has released lately, and I figured, what the hell, let's go over it. Now, we already talked about and covered in a past video just letting you know what all of the species are. Reminder that species is the new terminology that Wizards of the Coast is using in replacement for race in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and there are 10 species in the 2024 Player's Handbook. We already know what they are, but this D&D Beyond Article 1 will list them in a nice, easy-to-look-at format and also give you a little more information on what you can expect inside there. So why don't we just go ahead and dive in. By the way, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you're at Gen Con, come say hi. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. So here you can see right here, first up is Asmar, which again is a new thing in the Player's Handbook. They're not a new species for us in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. They've been around for a while, but it basically says, right, it's more or less what you saw in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse. However, the Celestial Revelation, it says you select the option each time you transform. All Celestial Revelation forms deal extra damage once per turn on an attack. The Celestial Revelation is the thing where you would basically get like the feathered wings or the glowing light or the kind of spooky wings. And you used to have to originally pick which one you wanted. Did you want to be able to fly? Did you want to do extra radiant damage to people around you? Did you want to have that fear effect? That now is just a choice you make whenever you transform. And they all have the benefit of extra damage. And then there's also Inner Radiance. Previously, Radiant Consumption still deals radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus with a 10-foot radius, but the extra radiant damage on one attack per turn has been moved to broader Celestial Revelation feature. Dragonborn, this is a pretty significant glow up, especially if you're talking from the 2014 Player's Handbook, but it says it functions very similar to what you saw in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, in that the breath weapon can be used as part of an attack, which is the best benefit there, because it's, if you have multiple attacks, it's useful. If you don't, it's neither here nor there. Has uses equal to your proficiency bonus, so more uses overall. These are per long rest, and the damage scales up from 1d10 up to 4d10 at level 17. So this will scale with cantrip scaling levels all the way up to 4d10 at level 17. You also get to choose the cone, or the shape of your breath weapon each time you use it, either a 15-foot cone or a 30-foot line. I really like this. This harkens back to the original breath weapon of the first Dragonborn ever printed back in 3.5, where it was the Dragonborn of Bahamut. They got that choice every time they used their breath weapon, whether they wanted it to be a cone or a line. This adds just a lot of versatility for you. Again, I do feel like the breath weapon will likely lose out on power. It is nice to see that it scales with cantrips, so if you are a caster, like, it's an option. Do I use my breath weapon or do I use my cantrips? And again, it has a nice benefit of AoE. If you are someone with multiple attacks, you could do an AoE and then a singular strike, or however that breaks out for you. But having the versatility of the cone or the line allows you to adopt it to whatever the situation may be. And then Draconic Flight. At level 5, your Dragonborn can sprout spectral wings that appear similar to your breath weapon. You gain a fly speed for up to 10 minutes once per long rest. So this is a nice benefit too. I believe they also do get Dark Vision, which I think was in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons as well. And then again, the resistances you'd expect Dragonborns to get. So this is definitely a large step up and puts Dragonborn in the running for a species that I would actually play. All right, so this is going to get to where it's weird. So you'll see that there are some species they streamlined, is what they're calling it, and other ones they didn't. And by that, I mean some of them that used to have multiple, what were called sub-races, I guess we'll call them subspecies now, I don't know. You would pick, right? So you would say, like, okay, shield dwarf or gold dwarf, or rock gnome or forest gnome, or whatever, right? Some of those, they consolidated them down so there is no choice anymore. I thought when I first saw this that was going to be the case across the board. They were going to remove the sub options completely, so you would just pick elf, or you would just pick dwarf, or you would just pick gnome. But strangely enough, that's not the case. They did it for some, but not all. So dwarf, for example, is one of those ones where they streamlined it. There is no more option when you choose dwarf. You just are a dwarf. Here's the other thing you'll see, and I'll mention it here because dwarves are an example. No species, at least the 10 printed here in the player's handbook, provide you proficiency in any kind of armor or weapons. So I don't know if this is going to be a thing we're going to see adopted across the board, but it's something you should be aware of. You will no longer have access to armor or weapons from your species as like an inborn training thing. The only way to get those is from your class. So again, the streamline is they now all get Dwarven Toughness, which is one of the best options, which was the extra 1 hit point per level, a Dark Vision out to a range of 120 feet, which is much double the length of original Dwarves Dark Vision, and an updated version of Stone Cunning, which we'll talk about here in just a sec. Their speed is now also 30 feet as opposed to 25. Stone Cunning has been replaced with the ability to gain Tremor Sense for 10 minutes on stone surfaces as a bonus action, proficiency bonus times per long rest. I think we can all agree that the original version of Stone Cunning, while thematic and very similar to what existed and probably a holdover from older editions, was situational at best. The option to bonus action turn on Tremor Sense is much more beneficial. Elf. All right, now you don't just get automatic perception proficiency, which is a thing elves usually got. You now get either insight perception or survival with keen senses. Drow no longer have sunlight sensitivity, so there's no drawback to choose that. High Elf starts with Prestidigitation, but can replace it with any wizard cantrip whenever they finish a long rest. And Wood Elf Mask of the Wild has been replaced with Knowledge of the Druid Craft cantrip. Each elf variant also has an associated pair of spells gained at level 3 and level 5. Each spell is always prepared and can be cast once without a spell slot and using your character's spells. So this is, again, the kind of standardization that you're seeing across the board here, right? It used Drow as the example, right? They get, Dancing Lights, Fairy Fire, and Darkness as their, things that we always had. Now you're going to see that's a similar thing for all of the elves, right? You see that High Elf starts with Prestidigitation, Wood Elf is going to start with Druidcraft, and that's kind of a thing. They're all going to get the 3 spell option. Gnome is also one that still retained its differences in its kind of options here. So they all now have been upgraded again to 30-foot movement speed. You have Forest Gnome. Speak with Small Beasts has been replaced with Speak with Animals. This is way easier and way more simplistic as opposed to the nuancy of Speak with Small Beasts. It's now just Speak with Animals. Always prepared, casted a number of times without equal to your proficiency bonus. You can also use your spell slots to do so. And then Rock Gnome gets the Mending and Prestidigitation cantrips. The Tinker trait has also been reworked for the 2024 Rock Gnome. Its effects are based on Prestidigitation. You can still have up to 3 devices at a time. So rather than just giving them that funky thing, it's just a tweaked version of Prestidigitation that allows them to do that. Goliath, again, a new addition to the 2024 Player's Handbook, is based on its Goliath from Monsters of the Multiverse. Their speed is now 35, which is a nice little bump there. And instead of just choosing what basically the Stone Giant variant, which is basically what we had in Monsters of the Multiverse, you now get to choose a different type of giant ancestry based on the type of giant that you were kind of spawned from, right? You can choose your type of giant: cloud giant, fire giant, frost giant, hill giant, stone giant, or storm giant. Each gives you a specific benefit you can use a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. At level 5, you can use a bonus action to become large for 10 minutes, granting yourself advantage on strength checks and increasing your speed by an additional 10 feet. So again, at level 5, you can bump yourself up to 45 feet of movement. And then also Powerful Build, which was formerly called Little Giant, no longer grants proficiency in athletics, but you have advantage on saving throws made to end the grapple condition in addition to the increased carry capacity. The increased carry capacity is a nice benefit here. And again, the removal of the proficiency in athletics to now give you advantage on saving throws to end the grapple condition. I'm not sure how that's obviously very situational. The proficiency in athletics was a lot more useful, in my opinion, because you're going to use that across the board. Whereas ending the grapple condition, I mean, it's nice, but it's, again, obviously situational. And then again, they're not going to go into, you have to check my video come next week when we talk about this in detail. All right. Halfling, again, is one of these ones that's been streamlined. There are no sub choices for Halfling. They all will receive Brave, Halfling Nimbleness, and Luck, which was formerly called Lucky, and the naturally stealthy traits, and their speed is now 30 feet. Human is basically almost exactly the same as Human was in the 20 or in the Unearthed Arcana, right? You gain Heroic Inspiration, the 2024 version of Inspiration, whenever you finish a long rest, which is very nice. Reminder that Heroic Inspiration allows you to reroll any die roll, damage or d20. Skillful, you get proficiency with one skill of your choice, and Versatile, you gain an origin feat of your choice in addition to the one gained at character creation. So you're still going to get the benefits of the ability score improvements. You're going to get the bonus version, so free inspiration whenever you finish a long rest, skill of your choice, and a feat. Orc is again now in here. We have Orc kind of migrating in. We used to have half Orc. We have Orc from Monsters of the Multiverse. Adrenaline Rush. This feature can be regained after a short or long rest. Orc Dark Vision has been extended to a range of 120 feet, and they no longer have the powerful build feature. Seems odd, but either way. And then lastly, Tiefling is one of the ones that, funnily enough, got 3 different options, as opposed to, we had originally just base Tiefling, and then they did the whole thing where they did all the different variants of Tiefling. I think that was in Xanathar's Guide, maybe? I forget. And then, so your options are Abyssal, Chthonic, and Infernal. Each Tiefling variant has an associated damage resistance and a pair of spells at level 3 and 5. Again, think about base Tiefling from 2014. They had what? Thaumaturgy, Hellish Rebuke, and Darkness, I believe. So again, in a very similar way, mimicking the elf, you're going to have a resistance. Each one's going to have a different resistance. Probably, again, one of them will be fire based on the original. And then you'll have a cantrip of some kind, and then a spell at level 3 and a spell at level 5. And similar to everything we've seen so far, they will have, you can cast them once without expending a spell slot, and then use any spells you have to cast them. They're going to give us a little bit more here. Let's see. For Asmar, this means that your celestial revelation is now tied to your mood or emotional state when you call upon it. Are you looking to soar with your heavenly wings? Are you ready to be a righteous beacon with your inner radiance, or feeling crestfallen, use your necrotic shroud? That's what we talked about. Goliath, okay. Now you choose a specific one. For example, a descendant of fire giants can add an additional d10 fire damage to an attack roll. A Goliath with a stone giant ancestry uses a reaction to reduce, so they have stone's endurance, which is what it was always. And then each of these traits can be used as a proficiency bonus times per long rest. And then it says orcs. They retain the Adrenaline Rush feature, which allows you to dash and gain temporary hit points as a bonus action. Now you regain all uses of this trait after you finish a long rest, and again, bumped out to 120 feet of dark vision. Here is the image of the Tiefling from this version here, and it does have a little bit about revised species traits. We'll take a look at that. A boost to effectiveness. Features for several species have been given a boost to help them be more usable action economy-wise. Dragonborn can choose whether their breath weapon becomes a cone or a line. Gnomes gain full access to speak with animals, and dwarves gain tremor sense. Elves and tiefling get spells. Each of the main 3 elven lineages get spells. For example, the Wood Elf now gains Long Strider at 3 and Pass Without Trace at 5. Similarly, a Chthonic Tiefling gets False Life at 3 and Raven Enfeeblement at 5. The Tiefling lineages also gain a Resistance and the Thaumaturgy cantrip. So there you go. And then each species was shaped with an eye towards the fantasy. When working on the revisions, a decision was made to focus on the fantasy of each species. Dwarves were given enhanced stone cutting and dark vision to emphasize the legacy of toiling away in the mountains and kingdoms. Goliaths much more heavily in the specific descendant of the giants. Dragonborn were given access to wings because flight is a cool thing about dragons. Even humans got an update. Their flavor text talks about the humans have spread throughout the multiverse. By emphasizing humans' resourcefulness and versatility, the 2024 rules portray humans as they're seen in stories like Lord of the Rings or The Witcher, or even sci-fi tales like Star Trek, never content to stay in one place, always eager to learn, grow, and explore. In some cases, this means some species be given more choices, such as tieflings or Goliaths. In other cases, like halflings or dwarves, they've been streamlined. And then again, it goes on to say that basically ability score improvements are now tied to backgrounds, not tied to species. And it says the way ability score works for 2024 is that each background has 3 ability scores tied to it. You can choose to add 2 to one ability score and 1 to another, or 1 to 3. For example, the farmer background gives you strength, constitution, and wisdom. The wayfarer background gives you dexterity, wisdom, and charisma. And then they have a couple of pieces of new art. Here's some new human art, and that's about it. So there you go, folks. That is all of the D&D Beyond article that's talking about the new species in the Player's Handbook. Again, this was just kind of a primer, giving you a little bit of information here. I'll be going over it in full. I believe I'll have to check, but I think the actual embargo ends at 9 a.m. Eastern, which may be, if that's the embargo date, then you'll start seeing content as soon as 9 a.m. on the 1st. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.